Shanna Gardner's attorneys filing a motion this last week to dismiss the indictment against her. Gardner charged with the first degree murder in February 2022 in the death of her ex husband, Jared Brightigan. Mario Fernandez Saldana, her husband at the moment, also charged with first degree murder. The reason that they are asking to have this dismissed, well, it has something to do with what is called the taint team. The filing criticizes the lack of training and protocol for the agent assigned to the taint team. Essentially, that's someone who goes in, a third party, and says, okay, this is evidence, this is personal material, and has nothing to do with the case, or this is attorney client privilege material, and it needs to be separated this way or that way. Joining me to discuss and help explain this a little bit better than I can, Bob Motta, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries. Is it the grounds good enough for dismissing the case, or explain this a little bit more to us? What exactly they're saying happened and why they think it should be dismissed?
Well, so essentially, what they're saying happened is that the prosecuting attorney in the case accessed information, which is probably attorney work product from Gardner's attorney,
Hmm.
between communications between Gardner and her attorney, and that would not be discoverable in terms of like if it's trial strategy or theory or anything like that, that
Sure.
would be considered something that the prosecutor should not have their hands on. Yeah, I mean, like, and I don't know what they saw. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? At this point, we don't know what was seen in terms of whether it was trial strategy. Like typically, what happens in a situation like that is that's when you get a special prosecutor that's appointed to the case, and whoever the prosecutor that was on it that was exposed to the work product should be removed. And the special prosecutor would then take over the case, and so that's essentially what's going on. It sounds like that there was evidence that was acquired by law enforcement that was then accessed by the prosecuting attorney, which it shouldn't have been. Because typically, like law enforcement will say, hey, like I just want to let you know, some of the evidence that we got from the Google, and from the Google data is information that is relating, between Gardner and her attorney. There's some privileged communications here. You may not want to take a look at this, because you'll be conflicted out of it. So I'm imagining that's what happened here. Whether or not this is going to amount to the charges being dropped, I highly, highly doubt it.
Sure. Is it enough though, where they should appoint a special prosecutor if this in fact did take place the way that they're describing?
Yeah, I mean, that's the entire purpose of a special prosecutor,
Hmm.
I mean, that's what I was saying should have happened on Delphi, like, when, it became and I know I always go back to Delphi, but you and I talk about Delphi a
Yes.
lot,
Yes.
and a lot like, and Delphi kinda has everything, and when McClelland, who's the prosecutor in that case, had stated that, he had read messages between one of, Richard Allen, the defendant in that case, is one of his attorneys and somebody else that he was discussing trial strategy with. When McClelland admitted that in a pleading, I was saying, well, this McClelland's got to go. They need to put a special prosecutor has to be appointed
Mhm.
because he's seeing things that he's not supposed to see.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain things like, anything that they're going to put in a trial is discoverable evidence. But in terms of attorney work product, which are your thoughts, again, your feelings, your strategies, anything that you're thinking about in terms of preparing for the trial itself as the attorney is not discoverable either by the state or the defense.
Hmm.
Like I don't get to know, like I don't get to know what the prosecutors, but private thoughts are about the
Sure.
trial and
Yeah.
what their strategy is going to be, and vice versa. And when that takes place, it changes, it skews the ability to have a fair trial because that person now has an advantage, whether no matter which side it is, over the other in terms of us getting to where we need to go. And really, we're talking about the defendant's right to a fair trial ultimately.
Hmm.
So, you just need everybody playing by the rules. And, attorney work product is, it's something that nobody's supposed to lay eyes on. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't have to turn over,
Hmm.
even if the state's asking for it. It's like then the judge's gonna say, no, that's work product. You don't get to see it. So if that's what took place, it's an issue, you know, and I imagine that ultimately the remedy for this will be if that is the scenario, the judge in like I think probably in about every state has the ability to say, okay, well, I'm removing from the case and I'm going to appoint a special prosecutor who typically in states are floaters. You know,
Mhm.
they'll float and they'll bounce from county to county and wherever they need somebody to come in and try a case that's not in that prosecutor's office, they'll come in and they'll try it. So if that's the case, I think that that will ultimately be the remedy as opposed to dismissing the case, that they'll just appoint a special prosecutor.
Is it kind of rolling the dice, doing that and bringing this issue to light? You got to probably determine, well, what did they access? What of what relevance is it? How important is it? Who is the current prosecutor? And who might you get as a special prosecutor if you have the one kicked off the case? I suppose if you have what you would view as a weak prosecutor, you'd probably want to keep that one there. I don't know what the who's prosecuting this off the top of my head. I don't know what the state of all that is in. But if you viewed him as a fairly strong prosecutor and this came to light, and even if it really wasn't that detrimental of information, this would be a way, I guess, to roll the dice and see who else may come along on the wheel of potential prosecutors that you're going to be going against.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the and I hate to keep bringing up Delphi, but
Yeah,
that was the thing that I was thinking about with McClellan. I'm
yeah,
like, if I'm Rosie and Baldwin, the defense attorneys on that one, and I know that this popped up, and I know that McClellan saw things that he wasn't supposed to see, but I also know that he's pretty green in
yeah,
terms of being a prosecutor and has never even tried a murder case. Maybe I'm not running to get him removed in the fear of that they're gonna put a more experienced prosecutor on the case,
yeah.
So which goes right to your point. Yeah, I think that that always comes into play. Ultimately, if it gets in the hands of the judge, however, the judge isn't gonna care about those kind of
Sure.
logistics, The judge is gonna say, "Okay, well, I find that the conflict exists here. You access things that you shouldn't have. You have access to attorney work product. I'm booting you." You know what
Hmm.
I mean? So, because anybody can bring the motion. Like, the
Yeah,
defense can bring the motion. Prosecutors oftentimes, are the ones who bring the motion if they realize that there's a conflict that exists and that their office should be removed from the case, and then they'll file the motion to have a special prosecutor appointed. So, and then of course the judge can do it as well. So, I mean, it'll depend on what was seen, and and will depend on ultimately when it gets argued, which I'm sure when this motion to dismiss, obviously we're going to get a lot more information in terms of what they're talking about, in terms of what was viewed and mishandled. So at that point we'll know, and ultimately the judge themselves may make the motion for to have a special prosecutor appointed.
hey, it's Tony Brueski. If you like the podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, and press that bell so you don't miss any of our updates on the cases we're following for you right here at the Hidden Killers podcast from True Crime Today. And thanks